if personally put in a room with anybody from the most current scumbags to Osama bin Laden,
I understand.
I'm telling you what I would do. As far as policy of the United States, you got to take it up with your
I
man,
understand, but obviously if you start
Obama.
to torture an American citizen for committing a domestic crime in America, you are crossing a Rubicon. Would you do that as policy?
Can I ask you a question? What would you do if you were given the opportunity
Well,
before
been the one tweeting
Osama
about
bin
torture.
Laden was shot? If you got 30 minutes in the room, what would you do?
It's really a question about...
Would you play cards with Osama bin Laden?
What
would you do?
Well, let me put this to you. I think you need to take
If you met... No, you answer this.
Right.
If you met this scumbag before he killed... Not
right.
now. If you met this
really
scumbag before he killed these people and
right.
turned people into amputees, what would you do? Play cards?
It's not really
Maybe
about...
I should have said it in a British accent. These men
Senator,
killed innocent men, women,
being
and
such
children.
a jerk,
what would you do? Well,
Seriously.
you do it. You get paid for it.
Seriously,
So I figured
I've
I'd give
invited
you
you onto my
your
show
your own medicine.
because
Yeah. Greg Ball, by the way, a freaky guest here on the program, although I was very happy the last time he was here. But if you say that guy is completely over the edge, just wanted you to hear one more soundbite, and this from another New Yorker, Congressman Peter King. And while he's not talking about torture here, he is saying that, hey, maybe we got to look at certain houses of worship in this country more so than other places. This again, Peter King, former chair of the Homeland Security Committee in the House.
99% of the Muslims are outstanding Americans. The fact is that's where the threat is coming from. When the FBI was after the Westies, they went to the Irish community. When they were after the Mafia, they went to the Italian community. If you know what threat is coming from a certain community, that's where you have to look.
All right, Brandon, I saw a piece you wrote here against with your beloved Grand Old Party, and they ought to be careful with some of the rhetoric that they're playing around here with. I don't know that anybody in the GOP would want to claim Greg Ball here tonight, but nonetheless, when you hear this stuff, what's your reaction?
Well, let me say this. You know, I think we have to really look at political correctness as something that's actually destroying our nation. I think that I actually agreed to an extent with what Congressman King was saying, but I think we've got to be very careful because somebody can say the same rhetoric going back to COINTELPRO in the 60s that, well, we need to put surveillance in African-American communities. And so I think my piece, I think, really focuses on building relationships with the Islamic community and going after the extremists, not Muslim groups. And I think the GOP has to really craft that message carefully if it wants to take on another potential political ally. As far as the Greg Ball statement, someone needs to send Piers Morgan back to London, please, because this guy has made some of the most ridiculous statements.
But I think he had a lot of help last night because Greg Ball was whoa.
But you know, anytime, I mean, first of all, anytime we deal with issues of waterboarding or even looking at ways to get information, I always say that, if it protects Americans, then that should be our first priority.
Yeah, but this is the problem here is slippery slope.
Right.
And you can't ignore that over the last generation, we've seen safety take the place of civil liberties time and time again. 10 years ago in New York City, we were having a debate about how many cameras in the street. No one even raises the issue anymore. We have people buying elections. We have a disintegration of democracy and civil liberties, all under the name of this imminent danger and threat. Now, maybe the fact that what makes this country special is that we're even having this debate.
Right.
But the fact is we're on a slippery slope.
But I think what is the cost of saving American lives? And I think that's the challenge.
Well, I actually think the other challenge is when you have a constant threat of imminent danger with the threat terrorism out there, how far are you allowing the slippery slope to go?
What is terrorism? And I think that's the #1 issue, and I think we saw that in the recent bombings. A terrorist can be anyone.
Would you call Newtown terrorism?
I think it's homegrown terrorism. I think we've got some major issues.
But my only point is, we can't even define and all agree on what the words are. And I don't want to go on a sidebar, but I actually had, as a guest here on the program, one of the people directly involved on the FBI side when it came to some of the interrogations, and they were the ones, if you remember, who said the torture didn't work. We want to get this stuff, but they'll give up anything if they're drowning here with the waterboarding. Right. And I'm not faint of heart for a potential terrorist, but it's not an effective interrogation.
Well, but sometimes it is the problem.
Okay, but again, where we left the conversation, I had Chris Shays, one of my favorite guys, a moderate Republican congressman, and he's like, yeah, in effect, we can go to the dangerous mosques. And I'm like, well, how do you know which ones are dangerous and which ones aren't mosques? I don't want them in my church, on Sundays, so, is secret surveillance or wired to...
And I think you touched on it. We seem to be perfectly okay with letting the government take away some of our rights and our liberties as long as it's focused on them, whoever them happens to be. Right now, them for most people are Muslims because there's a fear of radical Islamic terrorism. But at some point, them becomes you, and that's where the concern is. And what if it
For me,
was
Brandon, one of the questions I always heard, I always wanted was this absolutism when we had this recent debate over guns in this country.
Right.
The Second Amendment is pure. It is a right. We can't touch it. Well, we also have rights to privacy. We also have certain other rights.
Absolutely.
But those are fungible. From some of the same people who argue that the right to guns, whether it extends to bazookas or anything else, or even background checks, you can't touch it. But when it comes to privacy, when it comes to freedoms of religion, that's a little different.
When it comes to discrimination, to Andrew's point, where is the passion to defend our civil liberties? Where is the passion to defend the lack of invasion of privacy?
But privacy also comes with a cost, and I'll actually agree with you. I think that the government has moved in too much of invading our civil liberties. But I think when you're talking about clear as day terrorism, modern day homegrown terrorism, I think there's a cost that comes with that, unfortunately.
All right, well, that will be the last word. We'll wrap things up after this. Stay with us.